Hello and welcome to the first edition of the Pro AVL Podcast. I'm your host, James Cooke.
Hi, I'm Ledetta.
And I'm Caroline. I'm the editor of Pro AVL Asia.
And, this is a new venture for us. Obviously, been doing the magazines for quite a number of years now. You've been in the industry for a while, haven't you, Carol?
Yes, longer than I'd care to mention, really, but it has been quite... Let's just say there were no podcasts when I started in the industry.
Obviously, the rise of podcasts has kind of led us to it's a whole new medium. Obviously, where it differs from kind of our online offerings is that people can listen to what we're saying, during their commute or doing the laundry, doing as well, or setting up a rig.
Yeah, it's true. On the move.
That's it. Yeah. So, what kind of podcasts do you guys listen to, Ledetta?
Oh, I've been listening to this Aussie one actually lately from ABC. Really good. Quite historical ones with a sort of twist. Interesting one on Hitler, how he fueled the Third Reich with heroin. And it was really, mind-boggling, really, for want of a better word. But really interesting. So, if you want your fix, then definitely tune into that one.
How about you, Caroline?
Well, I think we just all established we've all been listening to this very hit podcast, My Dad Wrote a Porno, which is hilarious. And I was just saying to Ledetta, I didn't really want to like it because I was, being an avid feminist. But it's very funny, and it's a team of young people. I guess they're all under 30, aren't they? But they've got a real rapport, and the guy's dad did actually write an erotic, in inverted commas, novel, which they then go through sentence by sentence and basically poke huge amounts of fun at it, and it's very good. So that's what I've been listening to. I also listen to lots of Radio 4 podcasts like Desert Island Discs, and just programmes that I've missed because I've been working far too hard on Pro AVL Asia writing my features. So it's quite nice to be able to catch up like that if you miss the radio programmes.
Without any further ado, we'll cut to your interview with Mike.
So I was in Japan very recently, and by some random coincidence, I met this guy called Mike Rodriguez, who's from LA, and he is a Clio award-winning sound designer who's been working in audio and film for years and years and years, and he has been doing podcasts since 2006. So we hit upon this idea. I was telling him that we're about to start doing podcasts, and he said, why don't you interview me for a podcast? So we decided to do a podcast about a podcast. And it was such kind of beginner's luck in a way, because he was really easy subject. I had to sort of guide him along in a few places, but generally he just talked about what he loved and what he loves doing. He made it really easy for me. And he was very entertaining, so I hope you will find it as entertaining as I did. I'm here in Japan with Mike Rodriguez and Bliss McGuinness from the Audio Now cast. They've been making podcasts since 2006, and they have just diversified into the field of videos with their Spaces series. So, do you want to say a little bit about yourself and how you started the podcast business?
Sure. I started the podcast about 12 years ago because I actually thought for a second that I'd be a retail operation. And I opened up a little studio and I wanted to sell gear. And so I actually, through some connections, got an API dealership. And I sold a little bit of API, and I thought, what would be a really great way to advertise my little studio setup? Westwave Audio was the name of the little boutique that I had. And I thought, you know what? There's this podcast thing that seems to be catching on, so let me start doing some podcasts. Well, I've gone to NAMM for years and years and years, and a lot of my friends like Larry, who owns API, and even Dan, and just Rob Arbitier, who's one of my good friends and works with Stevie Wonder. We would get together at the NAMM show, and on the last day of the show, we'd all go out to dinner, and we would just have a conversation. And we'd always talk tech, and we'd always talk about the latest and the greatest and the plugins. And I thought, this would be a really fun little thing for a podcast. So I decided, all right, I'm going to do 4 episodes, and I'm going to invite all my audio industry friends that I know that will show up to be on the podcast. And so I invited Martin Page, who's a singer and songwriter. He wrote We Built the City and King of Wishful Thinking and These Dreams for Heart. And then I invited Rob Arbatier, who is Stevie Wonder's programmer, and who works with Stevie Wonder, designed all of Stevie Wonder's software, makes it all accessible for him because he's blind. He modifies a lot of software. And then Scott Gershon, who's a big movie sound supervisor. And then another friend of mine, Bobby Summerfield, who is he was an engineer. He did a lot of Paula Abdul stuff in the 80s. And we all got together and we all sat down and I said, we're just going to have a conversation. So if you listen to the very first show, you're going to hear the most boring podcast you've ever heard in your life.
Was everybody a bit intimidated knowing that they were being recorded?
No, they were actually okay. What was the intimidating part was I spent all this time putting the whole podcast together, and I got the chairs, and I got the microphones and everything. I forgot I was going to have to host this thing. So I remember sitting there, and we had this super long intro that I wrote for the music, and I had my headphones, and I had a friend of mine who was a DJ, a radio DJ. She did the intro. You're listening to the Audio Nowcast, did the whole thing. And I remember it's playing, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they're going to be looking at me. I got to host this thing. And I never prepared myself. So it was like, talk about the red light syndrome, when the recording light goes on and you're like, So it's like, exactly. It's like, and now from the Nowcast Network Studios, here's Mike. And I was like, welcome to the Audio Now.
It's not exactly like being around the dinner table at that point.
It's not horrible, but let me tell you, if you listen to the podcast, number one, I sound like I'm talking in the library. It's like if I was doing a skit on podcast, I was
that would be it.
That would be it. It was that guy.
Brilliant.
But you know what? The thing is we were all friends, and it just kind of picked up, and we kind of just got this personality, and we just started laughing, and we tell stories, and that's the thing about our podcast that I think it makes us so unique is that we have real people that work in the industry that are still working in the industry, and we tell real stories. We talk about exactly what we're going through and what it's like. And I pictured myself talking to somebody in like Nebraska who, they want to work in audio, but they're not quite sure what they want to do. So I picture them like listening to some of the behind the scenes stuff and just kind of,
I want to be that guy.
Exactly, or I don't want to be that guy.
Exactly.
Because it's constant. It's not easy. I tell people, I talk to a lot of different, colleges and things like that, and I tell people, I go, look, getting the job is not the hard part, right? Anybody can have a job, but it's the career,
You've got to live and breathe it.
The career is where you really have to stay on board. So we, started podcasting, and basically we get together, we laugh a lot. Some shows are great, some shows aren't so great.
Do you put them all online though, regardless?
Yeah, they're all online. We have like 180 shows.
Yeah.
We used to do every other week. We did that for a couple of years, but then it had to slow down, and basically we went to once a month, and now it's once a month, once every other month, because everybody's working.
Yeah.
And
there's so much stuff out there, isn't there?
And but we still have a unique voice, and we have like, Andrew Sheps was on our panel, so we have some before he moved to England, and we have some really good shows. We've had the Beatles engineer Ken Scott's come in.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people come in. We've had doctors come in and talk about health in the studios.
Okay.
We've had NASA scientists come in and talk about storage.
Really?
We have just a bunch of different people. Sound designers coming in about how to design sound, and now our panel is really strong. We have Bobby Osinski, who's written over 30 books on audio. We've got Nick Peck, who's he's in charge of Disney mobile audio.
Okay.
And just a bunch of different people.
Do people approach you now and ask to be in your podcasts?
Well, we bring a lot of people in as guests, but to be on the panel, it's kind of like we keep the panel just with really, I don't want to sound elitist, but really kind of AAA all-stars, because people kind of have to fit in and kind of have to, I want the people that do the actual jobs. I want the people that are out there. We have a lot of great, Diego Stecco, sound designer. He's really great, and we have just a lot of good people that do just a really broad range of disciplines. And we've had Brandon Birdside, who did, all the sound design for a lot of movie trailers that you see. So it's just a lot of different disciplines. And so we've ended up podcasting, and 12 years later, we're still
at
going.
it. Yeah.
And then about year number 2, we wanted to do something video-wise. And so I came up with this concept of spaces. And literally, if you listen to the podcast, you will hear me talk about spaces like the second or third year.
Really? So that was back in 2007?
Yes, and and I wanted to do it, and I tried to launch it twice, and it never got off the ground.
Really?
So finally, about 2 years ago, I was working on a project, and I needed some help on a totally different outside gig, and I said, the next person that I see when I walk out of my bay, my studio, because I worked in an advertising agency, I'm just going to ask them if they want to help me with this job.
I know where this is going.
Lo and behold, my good friend, Miss Bliss McGinnis, she walks across the door.
Way.
Literally, she's the first person. And I said, hey, Bliss, I need some help on this job. Will you help me? And she just said, sure.
Meant to happen.
It was unbelievable because a month before that, I was thinking to myself, my career is going really well. I'm happy. I'm satisfied, but I want something more. And I was looking for more fulfillment. And I said, I just want an outside project, something that gets me excited. And I'm open. Put it out in the universe. And then Mike came along.
That's incredible. It was meant to happen.
So we did this one job together, and it was really fun, and we were laughing and having a great time. And so afterwards, after we wrapped, we went to go have sushi, and I said, look, I've been trying to do this thing called Spaces. And what Spaces is, my concept of Spaces is to take a video camera and to go into places where audio is made, played, or listened to. So I wanted to go into studios, and I wanted to go into venues, and I wanted to go into manufacturers, and just take people where audio is, because take them behind the door. Like a lot of studios, you only know their facade, you don't know what's in there. So I wanted to take people inside and just kind of show them around, and not get too technical. We can do that in the podcast, but kind of just as a fanboy, because I'm a real big fanboy of all this stuff. I'm having a great time. So anyhow, I talked to Bliss about doing that, and I don't know, things kind of opened up, and next thing you know it, we were shooting, and we did one episode, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
What was your first one that you did?
The first one that we shot was, I don't know what our first one that we shot.
London.
It's you know what? It's actually going to be coming up in the next episode. It's one of our London.
Okay. And
where
did you go?
We went to Rock Studios.
Oh, yeah.
We went to British Grove Studios, and we went to Rockfield Studios.
Oh, yes, you mentioned the other day you've been out to Wales, to Rockfield.
Yes.
That's a historic place.
And that was the craziest trip ever, because let me just tell you, how can you guys drive on that side of the road? I don't even understand.
How can you not?
I rented a car, and we were staying in the middle of London. So I go to pick up the car, and they just handed me the keys. Like, why did they do that? Why didn't they give me some type of test or something? Because literally it's like, okay, here you go, here's your car. And so I remember sitting in there, I'm on the other side, I'm like, this is going to be interesting.
Did it have a gear stick as well?
Oh, no. It was automatic.
Yeah.
But, it was the scariest thing. And I know you're not going to tell anybody, but I literally hit a bus.
Did you?
On the mirror.
Well, if you're going to crash in London, you might as well do it in style.
But I didn't stop. It just bent the mirror back and kept going.
Yeah.
And I was taking a nap at the time, so that was terrifying.
Yeah.
Crashed within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But we had that trip was really special because we had some really crazy moments because we were driving out to Wales, and we're like, I wonder where Stonehenge is. And literally, like, as I'm saying that, all of a sudden, if you drive, you go up over that hill and you come down, and there it was. It was
But what
right
were you
there.
doing there? That's not on the way to Wales.
We were going to Bath
We were
to
going.
visit friends.
Yes. Yes.
You must have got a bit lost if you ended up at
No,
Stonehenge
you know what?
on the way to Rockfield Studios.
Exactly. We were going to. No. We were going to Bath.
Okay. And then you headed up to.
And then
Rockfield
we
from
met Neil Taylor there and Chris Goldstone. We actually filmed in his studio.
What's his studio called?
Goldstone's house, or I forgot. That was a year ago.
Yeah, it's his home studio.
Okay.
But it's a
beautiful.
great.
So I'm sensing there's quite a strong element of travel here with your filming.
Yes.
Absolutely.
What we wanted to do is we want to start with the fun ones first. Like, there's so many studios in LA that would have been like the natural thing to do, but I don't do anything normal.
Right.
So we decided to start overseas, and then we also went to New York, and on this trip we went to Nashville. We traveled to Nashville. We shot at Blackbird Studios. We shot at Southern Ground Studios. We shot at
Addiction Studios.
So we shot a bunch of different studios there. Then we went to New York, to London to pick up B-roll, and to also and I'll give this out. We're big Queen fans.
Are you?
So we kind of had the B story in the whole episode as our quest for Freddie Mercury, and that's where we ended up.
In the cemetery that's behind my house.
Exactly. How in a small
I'd
world.
forgotten that you told me that yesterday.
Yes.
You went to Freddie Mercury's grave.
Yes.
And it literally, I can almost see it from my office window.
And it was really special. And unfortunately, the plaque that was put up, somebody
had appropriated it.
Yes, which was really sad. But it was just to be there and to know that at one time Mary was probably there, although they won't confirm it.
Yeah.
It's
likely
good.
to.
Yeah, likely
it's very
to.
historic. That
Exactly.
Whole.
And
Oscar
then,
Wilde's wife is buried in there. I don't know if you knew that.
No,
All
I
sorts
didn't.
of people. Yeah,
That's
she had a
amazing.
pauper's grave because by the time she died, there was no money.
You know,
Wow.
Yeah, it's really sad.
That's terrible.
we also went to Westminster Abbey,
Okay.
which is basically a giant grave.
Yeah.
You're like walking on dead people all
Everywhere.
the time.
Yeah, you can't
like
avoid
you
them,
can't
can you?
you can't avoid them. That was.
It was so beautiful.
That was
Kings
really
and
special.
queens. Yeah.
But then we popped over to what we did do is we had some time and we went and saw U2 in Dublin,
Okay.
which was kind of crazy. But it's like I found out U2 was playing in Dublin, and I'm like, we gotta go.
Gotta go.
Like,
Well, this is great. Somebody should be filming you, actually, because it's just like this mad trip that, and you didn't know that the interview show was on, for example. Here you are,
Right.
in Tokyo, and
Right.
it's the 3 days of the year that they're showing all this audio gear.
yeah.
And you've ended up in one of the best studios in the world, Studio
Yeah,
10.
it's really great.
Yesterday. And now you're going to an engineer's house tomorrow, a producer's house.
Exactly. And
Well,
then
rewind to Baltimore.
oh yeah, we went to Baltimore. We went to API.
Okay.
We shot over at the factory, and we're going to have an episode all about our experience there.
Right,
So
right.
it's kind of like life is magic, right? You just never know. You just got to put yourself out there, and you just got to take some chances.
You have,
and you
and
never know
yes.
when you're going to be on a podcast
And,
or a
and
magazine.
like people say, there is no such thing as coincidence,
Yeah.
just chances. And once you start to see those things, you go with them.
Exactly.
Great things can happen.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about, with all this new technology, with everything that happens, it all comes down to the people, though.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to take a chance, and if you don't want to step outside your comfort zone and just try something new, you're never going to reach another plateau. You're never going to reach another level. And so I encourage that all the time to people. It's like, why be safe? Be a little crazy, do things a little outside the box, and you never know where it's going to lead.
So do you manage to give yourself enough holiday time to come and do these things? I guess you're freelance.
This
both of you.
this is a holiday.
This is your holiday.
It's like the one thing that we really like to do is mix a little bit of business, but then also, if you're in London, you have to see a play. It's like you got to go to the theater.
Yeah.
So we tend to see a lot of theaters, and then we're both really big music fans. So we tend to see a lot of concerts. And
We saw Marilyn Manson in Nashville.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
it was.
It really was.
Marilyn-
That's
To see that whole culture of Nashville when you think of, cowboys and just this,
Right. And then Marilyn
to
Manson.
see these really
Yeah.
intense, goth people that live in Nashville.
Yeah,
Culture clash.
I love it.
We've seen that. We've seen Mastodon in New York.
Right.
Which was another just fun concert. We've gone to Hamilton and London, and we just, I want to experience a lot of entertainment and a lot of stuff.
Did you make any podcasts for the podcast series?
We did in Nashville.
Yeah.
Brent.
Yes, we did actually. We one of my good friends was Jonathan Keynes from Journey, was his keyboard tech for 15 years, and he actually got me started. And I ended up working as a tech. I ended up working with Stevie Wonder. I toured with him for 4 years and a bunch of other different acts. But he kind of got my whole career started. So I wanted to do a Nashville episode, and he's kind of the A story about what he's done and the fact that he got me started in what I'm doing now. Because if it wasn't for Brent, I wouldn't be here right now talking with you. Right. And it's just funny how everything is kind of connected and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're able to pick up on it and follow it. Because not a lot of people do that. A lot of people would just sort of carry on the path they've chosen without seeing what's off the path like.
Well, the thing is if you're going to work in this industry, as you know, especially anything with audio or anything with video, you got to be limber because things change, situations changes, and you just never know when you're going to have to adapt to the marketplace.
Yeah.
So don't get, don't get so rigid in what you do with everything.
Yeah.
Don't get so rigid on the software you use. Don't get so rigid on your process.
Yeah.
Things are going to change, and you have to have that kind of fluidity and adaptability to survive. You never want to be the old guy, the cranky old guy who I've done it this way for this long and it's going to happen. Because
but sadly there are those guys.
Oh, there are, and you see them all the time, and then you give them a term like ambisonic microphones, and they're like, what? So it's like you got to keep learning, you got to keep going. But it's been really fun, and the podcast is still going to be going on, but now we're going to be adding spaces.
Well, you've done so well to be doing the podcast 12 years later. What have you learned from that whole run of 12 years?
I think the best thing I've learned is the fact that it's all about people. Like, it's all about the group of guys that I'm with and the panel and just the interaction. I get the best responses, not necessarily by any one topic, but people really love the fact that we're all friends and we all get along. And people just like that. It's just, if you're a people person and people respond to what's real and genuine, it's kind of entertaining, it's kind of fun.
Are you all always in the same, are you all in the same room at the same time? Or
Exactly.
do you have phone?
No, we one person, Rob Arbatier, has never missed a podcast. And so if he's traveling, we'll Skype him in, but pretty much everybody's
in the
there.
room at the same time. That's quite a lot to organise to get everybody together.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, but it's.
But that's how it works.
It's how it works, and it's kind of fun. And when we get back, we haven't done any in 4 weeks because of the fact that we've been traveling. But when we get back, we'll be kicking off doing some more podcasts.
And do you go in with a topic, or do you just see what evolves?
Sometimes I go with a topic, and I'll be honest, sometimes the topic comes in like 5 minutes before we start rolling, because a lot of times I was mixing right up until I had to leave to get to the podcast. So sometimes my brain I couldn't do it. But it's so funny. All I have to do is, hey guys, what are you working on? And then somebody will say something and like, okay, we're going to run with that. And that'll be the topic.
Do you have an optimum length, or do you just keep rolling to people at
We have shows as short as an hour, right? Because we only do it once a month. So we're going to go. But we've had, 93 minutes. One was almost 120. It was probably too long, but it was just such a great vibe. And, I've never heard anybody, hey, can you cut that show down? We just go with it. And I can kind of tell when things start to
drag a little bit. Do you have much feedback? Do people call up or email or tell you?
We don't. The best feedback I get is from my download stats. Because we haven't monetized it at all in 12 years. It's purely been a labor of love. So we have a little Facebook page, and I try to be as active as I possibly can. But really, we have enough feedback that if anybody writes in, I'll either write them back or send it to whoever will. And we get a lot of positive feedback. And we have like a group of guys that I know have listened to every show.
Okay.
We have about, on a low show, maybe 2,500 downloads, and some shows would be as high as like like I think we had 10,000 for when Ken Scott was on, Beatles engineer, and it just kind of fluctuates in between there.
And where do they go? They go to your website to download
Yeah, you can go to, if you go to audionowcast.com, it's going to direct you to nowcastnetwork.com, which was my delusion of grandeur of having my own network, Nowcast Network, right? But it's Audio Nowcast, and that's where it is. And actually, you'll be able to find links soon to all the stuff that we're doing with Spaces and with all our stuff there. But yeah, it's been really great, and it's been really just seeing the evolution and actually working with Bliss as she produces the show and does a great job with her background in production. And it's really kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm having the time of my life, the best job I've ever had.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's just having fun. I mean, it's just a joy every day. It doesn't feel like work when I'm here at this show, you know, filming, Mike, walking around, talking to people. It's just so fun. And the camaraderie of the podcast is just unbelievable. The guys say, Mike, when's the next podcast? We miss each other. Like, we want to get together and we just want to talk and have a good time about what we love, and that's audio. So. And
I guess it must be, you know, this great cross-pollination of ideas as well when people get together once a month to talk about things.
It really is. It's a good cross-pollination. The best conversations, I tell people, unfortunately, are the ones that we have off the air, where we really name names. But here's the thing, it's everybody's unique and everybody has a different input and everybody has a different insight, and it all kind of melds together to get in the show.
There's certainly disagreements.
Oh yeah, there are definitely disagreements in a really fun or not so fun, mostly fun way. But that's the thing, it's like, you know, you don't want to surround yourself with a bunch of people that are the same as you. You want to have a broad
opinions.
Yeah, especially like even for instance doing Spaces. I think the reason why I got off the ground is because when I met Bliss, she didn't know much about audio. She came from producing side of things. I came from the tech side of things. And I think what makes it so good is I can bounce stuff off her from a totally non-tech, and she can put her opinion in as to like, that's really boring.
That never happens. Mike is the most entertaining person on the planet.
But you know, so she definitely has that way of not letting me go too far overboard, and I just think it's just a really good combination, and that's just working with just different people, you know. So surround yourself with people that you just don't think you'd ever work with or anything like that, and it just stuff really happens, and it's pretty fun.
Great. And so do you ever see yourself having that media empire that you imagined you would?
You know, I'm focusing on it more and more now because I realize, you know, I actually have a background in film, and I'm working on some documentaries and some things right now that I'm filming, and I've actually done some picture editing, and I edit all our shows, and so it's like I think it's time to there's definitely a little niche that we can take advantage of, so we're doing some really fun stuff.
A sound guy getting into film.
I know.
That's quite unusual, yeah. Who'd have thought it? But like you say, you have to keep adaptable.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if you are starting out, if you're in trade school or you're in a recording school, look, if you learn how to edit, that's the key. You know, if you learn how, and I'm not talking about just splicing things together, like learn the concept of beats and learn the concept of how to tell a story, whether you're editing a song or you're editing a commercial or a music video. If you just know the concept
and what needs to be left out.
Exactly. Just edit, and that's the second part is then learn how to re-edit. That's half your battle. But I find a lot of concepts that I've grown up with and used in like audio and used in music. Like, it's really interesting. And my music background made me a better post-production mixer because I would mix from a musical point of view. It's just, you know, there's not much melody, but you still have sounds that you're blending and things like that. And I find my mixing makes me a better picture editor because I know about beats and I know about tempo, and you just learn how to do things, and so it all kind of gels together. So really, it starts with basic editing. If you know how to edit, audio starts right there, and then it just kind of builds up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure if I gave you the magazine to guest edit one issue, you'd probably do an okay job with that.
Oh
as
my!
well.
I would fall on my face.
Want to have a go?
I would love to, and then
Maybe
I'd
we
still,
should do that.
You know,
we should
but
bring you in to write some stuff.
I'll tell you who's a great writer. Bliss. I have her look at all my stuff,
Do you?
and yeah, because she is a phenomenal. Like her captions just on her Instagram account are hilarious.
I think
I'm going to have to follow you.
No, they are so
Are you good at
fun.
headlines?
Yeah. It's fun.
It's
Yeah.
a real
I love
art.
that.
There's a real
I
art
used to
writing a headline.
copyright.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you
For
got that kind of
promos
brain. Yeah.
in television. So.
And coming from her background, which, believe me, it's like producing where you have clients like Disney and some of the other studios where they need it now, and you need to function at a high quality right this very second,
Yeah.
because you're already late because you're listening to me talk.
But that's
you know?
juggling three of those big studios at once.
Exactly.
And keeping
Or
calm.
more. And all the
coming up.
producers, executive producers, and all the other,
Yeah.
people demanding. But it's a lot. But
No wonder you're having fun now.
yeah, it was a pressure cooker for sure. Learned a lot, and I feel like if I survived that, I could survive anything.
Sure. Yeah,
It's
great
the
training.
grind. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you still do you must do your freelance projects still though, do you?
I do.
back in
I've
LA?
been working on definitely some projects, so having some fun with that. But this is my favorite. So
No, I'm not surprised. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you both.
Likewise,
Thank
it's-
you.
It's been a pleasure, and good luck with the podcast.
Thank you. As I say, this is possibly podcast number 1.
Well, that's fantastic. I
so
feel
I
honored.
hope it's not as boring as your first one was, which, by the way, I'm sure wasn't actually boring.
we all have to go listen to it now. I'm dying to go
Yeah, I
listen to it.
know. I wish I'd listened to it before I sat
You
down
know,
with
as
you.
soon as
I didn't do my prep very
Listen
well.
to the last one and then listen to the first
And then
one.
go
I
back to the
think that
beginning.
would be
Okay.
better.
I'll just tell you, the very first one, it's like, hey, welcome to the Audio Nowcast. My name is Mike Roger. I sound like I'm in a library. And the last couple, hey, welcome. I sound like an FM DJ on steroids. So just trust me. You'll see.
The
You'll see.
evolution.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure.
There you go. That's podcast number 1 in our series, and hopefully you will have found it a little bit more inspiring than the Audio Nowcast podcast number 1.
And if you have enjoyed this podcast, obviously we'll be back very soon with episode 2. I'm hoping to pin down our boss, Richard Lawn, who many in the industry know and love. So yeah, that should be an interesting conversation, but don't miss that one.
Tweet us what you want to see us cover next podcast. Get in touch with us on any platform, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and just let us know what you want us to talk about.
You can find us at Pro AVL Podcast, and you can find our podcast anywhere podcasts are found, but maybe not all of them.